right, let's go for a first impressions drive in a new Tesla Model 3 standard rear wheel drive. Gotta tap the Tesla key. Says I'm good to go. Let's do this. Put it in reverse here. All the cameras come on. Side view mirrors go down. Very interesting. I can feel the pedal firm up too. It firmed up underneath my foot, as if to say, I'm getting ready. I don't know what's physically happening there, but now when I let off the pedal, nothing is happening either. So it's not until I hit the gas, not until I hit the lightning bolts that we actually start to go anywhere. And this is about the base model Tesla. So this is like as cheap as it gets when you're getting into a brand new Tesla. And we're gonna do a future video, or the plan is anyway, to do a future video or actually interview him and ask him what he paid, if he's happy with the car, if he can afford it, and interview him basically in this financial hot seat format. But for right now, let's focus on the dynamics of this thing and see what it's like to drive. So far, the one pedal driving is odd. I mean, it's definitely something that you got to get used to, because that is not how a normal car operates at all. And it's a layer of disengagement compared to like a manual transmission sports car, because it's requiring even less of you. All I have to do is put my foot up, put my foot down. That's it. Let's see, I've got it already in standard mode and in sport steering mode, because there's also a chill mode. And chill means that it's gonna accelerate more relaxed, I guess. But what I remember from driving one of these before isn't necessarily the off-the-line performance. It's the while you're rolling at 20 or 30 or 40 miles an hour performance. Coming up to a red light now. Oh, there it just turned. What happens if we give it a little punch here at 30? Ready, set, go. Holy crud. Yeah, that instant electric torque, that's something. Holy cow. So before we go out and get on the freeway here, let's actually set up the draggy and do a measured test to see how fast this car really is. So the testing that I like to do as far as an acceleration goes respects the vehicle that I'm in. I'm not trying to destroy something's gearbox by launching it. Now, electric car, that's kind of something else. Maybe we could launch it. But in general, as I go forward and make more videos of people's cars in the future, I don't want to be blowing up gearboxes. So what I like to do is a 20 to 70 mile an hour test. I feel like this is a real world kind of performance situation like I'm gonna do now. Let's get on the freeway. Let's see how well we can do a 20 to 70 roll on and how fast this is compared to other vehicles I've tested. Okay, here we go. Ready, set, go. Oof. That feels quick, but what's the time? 5.66 seconds. That is the fastest car I've tested so far, and it feels it. Boy, that pickup, when you first slam on the accelerator pedal, not the gas pedal, is so abrupt compared to my truck and other gas engine cars that there's no RPM we need to get, there's no anything else, it's just ready to go all the time. That is satisfying. Wow, this sport steering is oddly heavy. I'm shocked at how heavy it is. I don't really think it needs to be that heavy, if I'm honest. Let's get into the controls here, get into pedals and steering. We'll put the steering mode back into standard, because I don't think it needs to be this heavy. Now, as we go into the Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport, I feel like downtown Phoenix and an airport is the perfect place to showcase why you would get an EV. This is the kind of vehicle that thrives in the situations that a normal gas engine vehicle doesn't. Little squirts of acceleration, little punchy needs to get in and out of traffic, sitting in highly congested areas, not wanting to create a bunch of emissions fumes, being able to have a nice quiet cabin in lieu of a stressful situation like downtown traffic or sitting here about to get on a plane. And I'm getting a phone call, which is not safe. So the initial impression that you get when you're in a Tesla for the first time is kind of this minimalist, almost Scandinavian design philosophy of everything here, because there's one screen in one spot in the middle of the vehicle and no gauges and no dials, and the steering wheel is very minimal, and there's no like indicator buttons anywhere. So it's just very clean in that way. You know, there's not the same kind of clutter that's in a normal vehicle. So what are the main likes and dislikes as far as actually operating a Tesla compared to a normal car, compared to other things that are priced similarly? These cars start at about $45,000. So it's a fairly premium product to start with. And I think that the interior materials don't quite live up to what I would expect for that. I mean, there's leather here on the armrest, which is not bad. There's decent stitching. The steering wheel is leather wrapped. I mean, it feels okay, but it doesn't feel super premium and super nice like something like maybe a $45,000 Audi or a $45,000 Acura or something similar to that. Now, granted, I drive a truck and I don't have a ton of experience in those other cars. So if you've got an interesting car or a newer vehicle that you want me to drive and review, then fill out the Google form that's linked in the description so that I can go ahead and make contact with you. We can meet up and I can make a video like this about your car and talk about the driving impressions of what it feels like to drive. And if you want to, we can even do a draggy test to see how fast your car is 20 to 70. That would be fun. I think what you're paying for with a Tesla is largely the fact that you're getting this driveline system that feels quite powerful, which typically is the opposite of economical, but it somehow is powerful and economical because you're just paying for electricity instead of paying for like a big V8 engine or something like that. So in a way, it's this sort of stealth car. Despite everyone being able to recognize a Tesla, it's a stealth performer. It's a stealth luxury car. It's a simple, understated sort of, if you know, you know, it's a cool car sort of a situation. It's not overt, it's not shouty, it's not in your face. It just does what it does in this quiet, serene way. It feels uniquely suited to actually drive aggressively because of that. Because if you're in a Challenger or a Charger with loud exhaust pipes and you floor it to go get around somebody, well, now you've made a big show of it and everyone sees you and hears you. But in this thing, it's just so darn quiet. Let's see what the brake feel actually feels like, because normally I would feel that more, but because of one pedal driving, I don't even feel that. I have very little brake feel. I mean, you're not even touching the brakes in this car, I'll bet 90% of the time, whenever you would normally be touching the brakes. And so you don't even have an opportunity to engage with them and have brake feel because your foot physically isn't even touching the pedal. It's like, again, they're taking away sensory inputs for you, and they're taking away activities as a driver to have you do less and less. If you hate driving, this is actually probably a decent car for you, because it is so different than normal driving and it requires so little of you, not even factoring in things like autopilot, that you probably would really like driving this car. Now, if you love driving, I don't know, if you love driving to a certain degree, then I think you would like this car. If you really, really are a nerd about driving and you want like a vintage Porsche race car or something like that, you'd probably hate this car because it is so insulated and it's so digital in a way. I mean, to sum this up for someone who's never driven a Tesla, it feels like using an iPhone that travels around with you and carries you places. It is the most cell phone-like car I have ever driven by far. Accidental rhyming. And it's an interesting proposition in this day and age to think about getting a Tesla, because they're pretty mainstream at this point in the fact that everyone knows what they are and how cool they are and what they do and all this sort of stuff. It's got interesting opportunities to interact with things on the screen that other cars don't really have. You can watch Netflix and do all kinds of stuff in here, which is interesting and fun. But as someone who enjoys driving, and as someone who in the past has enjoyed internal combustion engines, is it a waste to get a Tesla? Because you're essentially just buying into the future that's coming anyway. Are you missing out because you could have had something special that's an internal combustion engine car that has a more limited lifespan than this? I think you could be missing out. And the rule that's come up that allegedly is outlawing internal combustion engine cars by, I think it's 2035, I just don't buy that. I don't think all of a sudden that light switch will be flipped off and no one will ever be able to have another internal combustion car. To me, that doesn't make sense. I think there's still going to be room for that, and that lawmakers are going to kind of push back that requirement when the time comes, because it's just too unreasonable with the infrastructure not being ready for everyone being EV yet. That train really wanted to make sure I did not turn into him. What's the initial first verdict on driving a base Tesla Model 3? It's an entirely nice, insulated, decent experience. Is it something special that I want to tell people about because I want them to experience it? Maybe if they've never driven an EV before, yeah. But as an implement for driving pleasure, not a lot of pleasure here. It's the best insulated way to commute from here to there cheaply and quickly and quietly. Is it the most fun way? Definitely not.